Hello everybody and welcome back. My name is Manga Writer and I managed to watch the Steven Universe movie when it first premiered just a few days ago. God, this script is old. The moment I saw the first trailer of this film, I made a constant effort to stay away from most of the advertisement for this movie and went into the premiere almost completely blind. I had virtually zero expectations going into this movie and I feel like that really benefited me in the long run, because 80 minutes later the movie ended and I overall enjoyed myself. But I did have a few problems. There is plenty of stuff to praise in this film, but this movie also contains some of the weaknesses that held Steven Universe back as a show for me, but this time it's blatantly obvious as opposed to being somewhat subtle. This review will be containing spoilers because I think referencing the whole movie will really help me out, so if you don't want that, you can click off now. You have 3 seconds. Jesus, thank God that faggot's gone. So let's start this review on a high note and go over the stuff that I personally really enjoyed. First off, the music. A portion of Steven Universe's charm has always been in the music, with the simple ukulele chords and the lyrics that were always filled with positivity and sometimes deep stories that made certain characters way more interesting. Think of it as Ruby, but actually good. And the movie takes that charm from the show and really cranks it up. This film, to my surprise, turned out to be a musical, and in my opinion, I think that really benefited the movie. All the songs have a catchy beat, they all related to the story and themes of the movie, some told great stories, and even had a little more variety in terms of composition, with the usual rock and chill music that I grew to love to the very nice addition of jazz, which really reminded me of animation from the 30s and the 40s and contains easily my favorite song in the movie.
Play another game, this time I got to win. Flag on the line, winner takes all. Ready or not, let's begin.
God, that song is so good. Voice acting was still as top-notch as ever. One thing I didn't expect going into this movie was the change made to Steven's voice, which sounds much older and more mature, and I think that was a wonderful idea. Not only was Zach able to deliver his lines much more naturally, which enhanced his performance way better than he could before, but it also greatly enhanced his singing voice, with the deeper voice having much more power and energy than the high voice.
Here we are in the future. Here we are in the future, and it's bright.
Life and death and love and birth and peace and war on the planet Earth. Is there anything that's worth more than peace and love on the planet Earth? Whoa.
You can make it right. You can make it better. We don't have to fight.
His head voice sounded angelic and natural, and his bass was damn impressive. Overall, a lovely change that I greatly appreciated. Yes, there are some times where his voice slips back to the old voice, but considering that he voiced his character in that voice for literal years, I'm more than happy to give him a pass. Come on guys, I'm critical, but I'm not heartless. Also, Bismuth's singing voice.
I've seen them get through us and come back stronger. That's why I believe in them, and I believe in you, because we are the crystal gems.
I was not expecting that. Fucking incredible. In terms of animation, the animation has also received a massive upgrade from the show. Backgrounds look absolutely incredible with insane levels of detail in some scenes like the gem farm and Pink Diamond's garden. The colors really popped out at me and made some of the scenes look like works of art. The opening contains some of Steven Universe's most effective use of colors ever. The composition has also been upgraded big time, with the film having a lot more angles and perspectives, and some of the cinematography really sucked me into some scenes, the fight scenes being golden examples. Characters' movements were lively, expressions were mostly great with only a few small hiccups, the action has really improved the subpar choreography that was in the show, which made them way more intense and attention-grabbing. I could actually feel the impact of the punches this time around. But the places where the animation looked the best and the most eye-grabbing was the animation done to Spinel. They did not hold back with her. Every time she was on screen, her movement was just a pleasure to watch. Her poses were very flexible and had amazing squash and stretch, her fighting style was insanely creative and subverted pretty much all of my expectations, and the contortions of her body resembling the style of Rubber Hose animation was a very nice nod to that style. She even does idle animations sometimes, it's so much charm and passion. She's like the embodiment of the 12 principles of animation. I love it. I don't know if this is a reference to Cuphead's idle animation, but if it is, so cute. And while I'm on the subject of Spinel, I really liked her for the most part. Her voice acting was very impressive, with the actor being able to do the sadistic and chirpy tones extremely well. She remained mostly consistent in her character, and her backstory was very tragic and made you understand why she's so bitter towards Steven and the gems. The scene that explains her backstory is easily my favorite scene, hands down. I had pretty much no problems with it.
I can't believe Mom did that to you. Actually, I can totally believe it.
On a visual, auditorial, and somewhat character level, this movie is a very, very fun watch. Now let's talk about the flaws, because I have quite a bit of them. One of the biggest gripes I have with this film is the story. It's not that the story was completely broken, the only plot point I could think of was how in God's name did Spinel get this massive fucking machine when the Diamond said that the galaxy was at complete peace.
I've disbanded my armies. I've liberated my colonies.
That really threw me off on a second viewing. But the story suffers for me due to pacing and tonal issues. The first 2 minutes of the film opens up with a book retelling what happened in the show, and there's a song that starts playing 5.5 minutes into the film where Steven and the characters explain who they are. And while the song and the opening are both really well done, and I know it's obviously a reference to old Disney films, to the people who have been with this show ever since the start, it's the fanciest form of filler this movie has to offer. I get that they did this to catch people who haven't seen the show up to speed, because those people do exist, but to someone who has seen the show, it makes me like the opening and the song a little less. There's also a part of the movie where the Crystal Gems and Spinel lose all of their memories after slashing the reset button, and a portion of the movie is Steven trying to get their memories back by having them experience their past. Well, in a metaphorical sense. This plot point not only screeches the story to a grinding halt, but it adds an extra 40 minutes to the film, making at least half of this movie complete filler. A fancy way of padding the movie to give it that sweet 1 hour and 20 minute runtime. You take out this plot point and the movie becomes just a little shorter than the final episode of the show. And once the Gems and Spinel gain back their memories, it's almost like they never lost them to begin with. They all went back to being normal and just went along with the plot with no lasting consequences, just having experienced a hard crash, making the whole losing the memories thing utterly pointless for some characters. The only characters they had to get their memories back to move the story forward were Pearl and Spinel. The other two could have just been shoved to the sideline and nothing really would have changed. I will admit it did give us some funny moments with 2 instances of characters almost saying shit, which really threw me off, but I still found funny. Peridot breaking the fourth wall, Steven roasting his mom, and of course leading to the best scene of the film in my opinion. But aside from 5 out of those 40 minutes being great, the rest of it was still fun, yes, but all in all felt like it could have been cut out entirely. When I mention tonal issues, the prime example is the ending. The film built up to the ending being bittersweet, but all of a sudden it just left on way too happy of a note. Everything that's happened to the planet has been fixed in what looks like to be no time at all, and it made the whole world-ending plot point lose a portion of its weight. It also completely ruins one of the best things in this film, but I'll get to that point later. I do understand that this is a kids movie. I'm by no means expecting for this film to turn into The Boys straight out of nowhere, but even by kids movie standards, every conflict was resolved way too quickly. I also really didn't like what they ended up doing to Spinel. When she appeared, she obviously has very bad blood for Steven, and when she got reset, she had this unpredictable, almost creepy vibe to her, like she'd snap at any minute, which is what I liked. And when she returns to the garden and she finally remembers her backstory, the film did a splendid job at showing the hurt and the betrayal she felt when Pink Diamond pretty much left her to rot for all those years. It was a very powerful scene. The film tried to make it seem like things could turn out well for her, but unfortunately, once Steven fucks up his wording, Spinel just completely snaps and goes berserk, going as far as to flat out call Steven out on his bullshit and saying that you can't fix everything by singing some stupid song.
You can't just make everything better by singing some stupid song!
Thank you!
I really liked her for being this creepy, tragic, and unstable nutcase for the movie. It really made me sympathize with her and adds another reason as to why Pink Diamond is quite unlikable. But the film, instead of having Spinel be a tragic villain that could have had a happy ending but didn't, and also be a great commentary towards the flaws of Steven Universe, she just gets redeemed. They just 100% redeemed her, just like that.
What am I doing? Why do I want to hurt you so bad?
What about me?
Huh?
Is that all you needed me for?
No. Well, sort.
That's it?
Well, yeah. We can just forget this whole thing ever happened.
I'm gonna kill myself!
Spinel just fell into the same pattern that all the other villains fell into in the show. She was evil, she wanted to kill Steven, she gets redeemed after a song and a talk, and everything's all hunky-dory. White Diamond's redemption arc made me aware of it, but Spinel made me really realize this pattern that Steven Universe had, and it ended up making her predictable. I don't know, her just being redeemed just felt like a massive cop-out to me. Now before you say this, I completely understand why they did it. Steven Universe's biggest theme is the theme of redemption. Everybody can be redeemed. And while yes, that theme is perfectly fine, it just doesn't work well for certain characters and for certain stories. Redeeming the main villain just like that gets rid of a lot of the punch the story once had, to a point where that changing character can make the story seem pointless. You mean to tell me that all of this could have been resolved if the hero and the villain just talk things out? I get it, it does make sense, and it does sound realistic, but for a movie that has a setting where gems have powers and fight a lot of battles against other gems who pretty much have the mindset of Nazis, in my opinion, That's kind of lame. But if Spinel didn't get redeemed but White Diamond didn't, that could raise a lot of problems for the show. I know, but just because I get it, that doesn't mean I agree with it. If I'm being completely honest with you, if Spinel actually died, I would have given this film way more praise. She really could have been this amazing take on a tragic villain like Tai Lung or the Prowler. And you may be asking me, why? Why would I have liked this film way more if Spinel ended up dying? And dear viewer, my answer to that possible question is the biggest problem I have with this movie. This film plays it safe so much and so frequently, it ends up destroying some of the best messages that Steven Universe has ever told its audience. In this movie, there are some parts to it where it actually starts making fun of itself. Prime example is the whole singing doesn't solve your problems line I mentioned earlier, but another one is, after the poison dildo is destroyed, Spinel asks Steven about his happily ever after.
But what about the poison? What about the planet? What about your happily ever after?
Which has been a staple throughout this entire film, and Steven replies with this.
There's no such thing as happily ever after. I'll always have more work to do.
This line hit me like a truck. Not only does it slap the happy opening in Steven's optimistic delusion right across the face, but it shows that Steven has finally matured. The movie has matured. The show has matured. The movie pretty much took away the safety net it's been using for so long, combines that line Spinel said before, and says to you, life is hard. There is no such thing as a happy ending. You're gonna lose. There will be times where you get kicked while you're down and you can't just sing your problems away. Your life will not be great if you just sit back and do nothing. You have to keep working to make it good. This could just be me looking way too deep into it, I'm fully aware of that, but the simple line, there's no such thing as happily ever after, is a very good message for kids. It almost sounded like Steven Universe was subverting my expectations. It was going to take a risk. It was going to grow up. It was going to be unpredictable. The writing was slowly starting to become compelling. But it didn't do that. The planet goes back to being normal despite Steven's spit only having like a meter radius and a massive percentage of the planet has been poisoned, which Peridot said would kill the planet in just 40 hours. I still think that is so dumb. Spinel gets adopted by the Diamonds despite almost completely destroying Steven's planet, which I'm quite shocked to the fact that the Diamonds didn't question her at all, considering how much they loved Steven throughout the whole movie. Kinda fucked, I won't lie.
Has your planet always been this destroyed?
You were all on this planet before, what are you talking about? And the movie's ending song has everyone being happy and lively. There's no such thing as happily ever after, but the film goes ahead and makes it end on a happily ever after. Why would you destroy such a good message? I get that the song is like, if I'm with my friends, happily ever after never ends. I did listen to the lyrics a few times, but still, the ending was too perfect. I know we complained about this movie for at least 60% of the video's runtime, but the thing is, I still don't hate this film. I do still like it. It has a lot of what made me like Steven Universe in the first place, but it just felt too safe. It stayed in its comfort zone, told a safe story, and that's really it. I'd usually despise a piece of media for playing it safe. I ripped the OKKO Sonic crossover and Sonic Force is a new one for doing that. But in terms of this movie, yes, I still think it played it way too safe, but it was still enjoyable to watch. It led to really good songs, it led to some great scenes, and I will give the movie credit for doing that. I believe the best way I can describe my feelings toward this film is like eating vanilla ice cream. It's not special, it's safe, if there was another option you'd likely take it in a heartbeat, but the taste is still good and it leaves you feeling somewhat satisfied. And overall, I'd say that Steven Universe's movie was all around more good than bad. While I'm annoyed at the movie for hinting at being something different and not following through with it, it was still a good watch and I believe it's still worth checking out. If you don't care about the stuff I criticize this film for and love the themes of the original show, you'll love this film. But to those who were a little more critical of the show like me, this film will leave you feeling a little underwhelmed, but you'll probably still have fun. My name is Manga Rider, and Stag is the most cursed fusion I've ever seen. I could have slept knowing that this abomination of nature never existed. It brought back sudden flashbacks to when people thought fusion was a metaphor for sex and it just